Hello everyone and welcome to the Hockey Hub. So today we're going to be taking a look at the top 10 defensemen in the National Hockey League in my opinion. Now keep in mind this is just my opinion, so obviously your guys' list would be different than mine, and that's okay. If there's one thing that we can all agree on, it's disagreeing. So before I get started, we're going to list some honorable mentions. I have Thomas Chabot, Zach Werenski, Ivan Provorov, and Shea Weber. But starting off at number 10, I have defenseman Quinn Hughes from the Vancouver Canucks. Now, Quinn Hughes has obviously only played 1 year, but in his 1 year, he was fantastic. He was one of the best offensive defensemen in the National Hockey League and was second in Calder voting. Hughes has already cemented himself as a top-pairing blue liner and potentially a franchise defenseman for years to come. His offensive instincts are second to almost no defenseman in the National Hockey League. He is already this good at such a young age, and he is responsible enough in his own end that I think that he will be good for a very long time, and even going into next season, he should be a top 10 defenseman, and I feel with the season he had, he already is. But going on to number 9, I have a guy who really came into his own in this past playoffs. I have Miro Heiskanen from the Dallas Stars. Now, Heiskanen obviously had his big breakout with the Dallas Stars in this playoff run. Obviously, him and Anton Khudobin were the big reason why Dallas made it all the way to the Stanley Cup final. But Heiskanen really has been a very solid defender since coming into the league as a rookie. Heiskanen isn't necessarily the most offensive defenseman. Obviously, he does have some offensive instincts, but he's a rock in his own zone. He's one of the most reliable young defenders in the game. He eats big minutes, and a pairing of him and Klingberg is the reason why Dallas is still such a good team and was able to make it all the way to the Stanley Cup final. Even if they don't have those guys playing on the same pair, it's such a deadly defense duo to have on different pairings that it makes it really hard for the opposition to score on. Klingberg obviously being the more offensive of the two, but Heiskanen is a very solid two-way defender, and I have to have him on this list. At such a young age, he's already fantastic. At number 8, I have another younger defender that has really made a name for himself in this past year. I have Shea Theodore. Now, Shea Theodore is constantly climbing up the ranks as some of the best defensemen in the league. Theodore really had an amazing playoffs for Vegas. He was arguably their best player, got points in what felt like every game, and very solid in his own zone as well. For a while there, he was far and away Vegas' best defenseman and a real key guy on the ice and in the locker room for them. Anaheim giving up Theodore in the expansion draft really must hurt for them right now, because Theodore has proved he is a legit top-pairing blue liner in the NHL. He probably has a good chance of making one of the Team Canada rosters in the 2022 Olympics if the NHL goes, and that's no small feat. Theodore's fantastic. He's a good two-way defender, a lot of offensive upside there, and there's not much to hate on when it comes to his game. He's an overall solid defender and one of the best in the league. But now, at number 7, I have Cale Makar. Now, I know it's bold having a rookie this high up on the list, but Cale Makar in his first year was fantastic. In my opinion, he was one of the top 5 defensemen in the National Hockey League in his first year. Makar, in my opinion, did deserve the Calder Trophy. I know he didn't score as many points as Quinn Hughes, but his points per game was better, and I feel like he's a bit better defensively than Quinn Hughes is. Makar is already so good at both ends of the ice. Obviously, he does have his defensive mistakes. We saw that against Dallas. But overall, he's good enough in his own zone to warrant him being, at least respectable defensively. But then you look at his offensive numbers, and he honestly just looks like the next Erik Karlsson out there. His passing, his shot, just even his skating, he looks like a younger Erik Karlsson, and him and McKinnon is going to be a deadly duo for the Colorado Avalanche. I know he's a rookie, but I can't not have him on this list. He's already fantastic, and in my opinion, the next best defenseman in the National Hockey League. But at number 6, I have an absolute workhorse playing for the Columbus Blue Jackets in Seth Jones. Now, I know the analytic community isn't exactly big on Seth Jones, but in my opinion, that does not matter. Use the eye test. You'll see that Seth Jones is fantastic. He is the furthest thing from a defensive liability. He's such a rock in his own zone, and he can still score 40 or 50 points. In this past playoffs, in that historically long overtime game against the Tampa Bay Lightning, Jones played over a full game, the all-time record. So Jones is one of the best minute-eating defensemen in the NHL. He does have a big shot. He does have some offensive instincts, but most importantly, he's one of the best defensive defensemen on this list. Jones is an absolute machine, and he's a defender that any coach would want to have playing for their team. Now at number 5, I have Dougie Hamilton from the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, Dougie Hamilton really had a fantastic season this past year, but then got derailed by injuries. But when Hamilton plays, he's one of the best. He can do it all. He's solid in his own zone. He can hit. He's such a big defenseman, and his offensive instincts are fantastic for a defender. He's a good goal scorer for a defenseman. I believe in one of the past seasons he did lead the NHL in goals by a defender. He's got a great shot, and his all-around game is just really good. In my opinion, he is Carolina's best blue man. I'm going to give an honorable mention to Jacob Slavin, who I didn't have on this list. Slavin, I think, is maybe the best pure defensive defenseman in the league. His offense is okay, but I don't know if it's enough to warrant him being top 10. I know a lot of people are big on Slavin, and so am I. I feel he might get a little overrated sometimes, just because you have everybody saying he's so fantastic, and yes, he is great. But I don't know if I see him as a top 10 defender just yet. But Dougie Hamilton, I absolutely do. Hamilton is an absolute machine. He can do it all, and he's one of the most effective defensemen in the NHL. But at number 4, I have offensive defenseman John Karlsson. Now, Karlsson was second place for Norris voting this year. A lot of people thought he would win it, but to me, the rightful winner won. Karlsson is not the best in his own zone, but offensively, you couldn't ask for a better offensive defenseman. He was over point per game this year. He's been a consistent 60 or 70 point defenseman in his career. I do think he's the best offensive defenseman currently in the NHL, and that does count for something, and it does count for him to be high enough as 4 on this list. He is good enough in his own zone, but he's no standout, but his offense is just too much to argue against. But moving on to number 3, I have newly acquired member of the Vegas Golden Knights, Alex Pietrangelo. Now, Pietrangelo is fantastic. He can do it all. There is absolutely no weakness in Pietrangelo's game. He's a good offensive defenseman. He's a good goal-scoring defenseman. Yeah, he can pass. He can do it all. But then in his own zone, he can hit. He plays solid defense. He's got a good long stick. He's big enough. He's a great leader. He's one of the most well-rounded and perfect defensemen in the National Hockey League. Vegas fans have to be excited about getting Pietrangelo. I know that contract might not age well, but for right now, Pietrangelo and Theodore should make for potentially the best defensive pairing in the entire NHL, and could end up being the number 1 pairing for Team Canada 2 years from now. Pietrangelo is one of the best in the game, and in my opinion, could have got votes for the Norris Trophy this year. He was just that good, and he's been that good. He was one of the biggest reasons why St. Louis won the Stanley Cup, and in my opinion, he's definitely a top 3 defenseman in the National Hockey League. But at number 2, I have recent Norris Trophy winner Roman Josi. Now, Josi really just had his best career year, but he's been so consistently good for the past 4 or 5 years that, I think he could potentially have more in his career, if not for, his namesake in the past not being as big as guys like his former teammate Shea Weber, PK Subban. But Josi is one of the better defensive defensemen on this list, but also has amazing offensive instinct. He really gained a lot of steam this past offseason. He was performing at near point per game in the latter half of the year. So Josi's offense is not in question. None of his game is. As I said with Pietrangelo, this top 3, they're basically all just perfect defensemen. Josi isn't the biggest defenseman, but he can still throw his body around, and he's still effective at every area in the ice. Josi is a true star blue liner. But going on to number 1, I have the undisputed best defenseman in the league, in my opinion, Victor Hedman. Now, obviously, Victor Hedman just won the Stanley Cup with the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Conn Smythe as well. He's got so many Norris nominations. I believe he's been a nominee for like 3 or 4 straight years, actually. He's won it once, and in my opinion, will probably win it again sometime soon, if not next year. Hedman is simply one of the best of all time when it comes to Swedish defensemen. Nick Lidstrom, Erik Karlsson, and I have Victor Hedman in that category. Hedman is so good in his own zone. He's such a prolific offensive defenseman as well. We saw how many goals he scored in the playoffs. He was approaching the all-time record. So Hedman, once again, he can do it all, and he's so big, and he's such a good locker room leader and such a clutch defender. He always shows up in big games, and we saw that this past playoffs. He's one of the hardest defensemen to play against in the National Hockey League because he's so big, so talented. He's a perfect defender, and in my opinion, is definitely going to be a Hall of Famer. He's already carved out such a fantastic career and still has a lot of playing time left in him. I still think Hedman can be an elite defenseman for at least the next 5 years, and maybe longer. Hedman is great now, he's been great for years, and he's going to be great for even more years. But that does it for this list. If you have any differing opinions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Just no hate, please. I thank you guys for watching to the end. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys later. Bye for now.